In sunny Florida, Jake Portman works at a local supermarket and is constantly bothered by his coworkers. His manager, Shelley, calls him to take a phone call. On the line is his grandfather, Abe, who warns Jake not to visit that day, saying it's dangerous. Abe sounds paranoid and upset, but Jake isn't too concerned. He knows his grandfather was diagnosed with dementia. Outside Abe's house, Jake and Shelley see a wide-eyed man standing in the road, giving off an unsettling vibe. When they reach the house, Jake finds it in disarray and Abe missing. He tells Shelley someone broke in, so she heads back to the car to grab something for protection. Jake spots a flashlight in the nearby woods and goes to check it out. It's stained with something dark, and deeper into the woods, he finds his grandfather on the ground, unresponsive and clearly injured. Jake calls for help, and while on the line, Abe suddenly grips his arm and tells him to escape. With his final breath, Abe urges Jake to go to an island and find the loop of September 3rd, 1943. Jake, confused but shaken, promises to do so. At that moment, Abe passes. Shelley approaches just as a terrifying figure appears behind her. She reacts, but no one else can see it, only Jake. After this intense moment, Jake begins therapy to process what happened. He tells his therapist he's unsure of what's real anymore. He remembers the incredible tales his grandfather used to tell about strange creatures and extraordinary children. Jake's father, Frank, never liked those stories. Abe often spoke of a home run by a woman named Miss Peregrine, where children had unique abilities. He would even show Jake photographs of them. As a kid, Jake asked why Abe went to that island, and Abe would say it was to stay safe from the creatures. Jake believed those stories until classmates mocked him, and eventually, he stopped believing, something that deeply hurt Abe. While sorting through Abe's belongings, Frank remarks that although Abe was a good grandfather, he wasn't the best parent or husband. Back at home, Jake's relatives surprise him with a birthday celebration, but he's not in the mood. He heads to his room, where his aunt later gives him one of Abe's old books. Inside is a postcard from Miss Peregrine inviting Jake to return to her home, located on an island in Wales called Cairnholm. Jake's parents consult his doctor, who suggests that visiting the island could help him separate truth from imagination and cope with his grief. On the ferry ride, Jake sees a falcon flying overhead and remembers that Miss Peregrine could change into a bird in Abe's stories. Playfully, he introduces himself aloud as Abe's grandson. When they arrive, the island feels gloomy and mysterious. They stay at a rustic pub that also serves as a guest house. Jake watches as the pub's owners arrive and feels a bit uneasy. Still, he persuades Frank to let him explore Miss Peregrine's old house. A group of teenagers agree to take Jake across the island. Frank gives them a few bills and thanks. The boys, Dylan and Worm, mock Jake but lead him to the house, now in ruins. Disappointed, Jake heads back to the pub, where a blind man named Augie tells him the house was destroyed in a bombing during the war and that none of the children survived. The next day, Jake asks Frank if he can hang out with the same teenagers again. Frank is thrilled. Jake doesn't usually make friends. But instead, Jake returns to the ruined house alone. He looks through dusty photos and finds a staircase. As he climbs it, he sees a girl calling him Abe and gets spooked. He runs outside and notices other children watching him before fainting. When he comes to, he's being carried by a very strong girl named Bronwyn. Next, he meets the other children Abe had described. Emma, who floats unless she wears heavy shoes. Olive, who can control fire. Millard, who's invisible. Jake asks if they're all ghosts, but they tell him they're not, and neither is he. They lead him through a cave that contains a portal. When he exits, he finds himself back at the pub, now busy and lively. The manager won't let him go upstairs, and the guests accuse him of being a spy. Suddenly, items start flying through the air. The peculiar children arrive and help him escape. Jake realizes he's stuck in the past. In the year 1943, the pub catches fire due to Olive's powers. The group takes a carriage to the home, now restored and full of life. Flowers and greenery cover the grounds. Jake is introduced to Miss Peregrine, a wise woman who watches time closely. She has the power to control it. She expresses sympathy for Jake's loss and invites him to tea. There, he meets more of the peculiar children. Fiona, who can grow plants. Claire, who has a mouth at the back of her head. Hugh, who hosts bees inside him. And Horace, who has prophetic dreams. As Jake gets to know them, the group is interrupted. Fiona warns that the local police have come about the incident at the pub. Jake steps in to defend the children, saying they were only trying to help him. Miss Peregrine simply smiles. Emma goes back inside the house and wants to show Jake her special ability. Before she does, Jake ties a rope around her waist. She takes off her heavy shoes and begins to rise in the air, floating up to return a squirrel to its branch. Afterward, Jake gently pulls her back down. She puts her shoes back on and mentions that Abe used to help her with this, saying it was his job. Later, in one of the rooms, Jake meets Enoch, a boy with the ability to temporarily bring things back to life. He's the most intense of the children and demonstrates his gift by using 2 skeleton puppets with small heart-like devices inside. They come to life and briefly fight each other. Jake watches in amazement while Emma helps him get ready for dinner, lending him a tie and adjusting it. At dinner, Enoch, who seems envious of Jake, starts a disagreement. Bees suddenly appear in the room, but Hugh, one of the children, calmly controls them with his hat. The group asks Jake about life in the future, but Miss Peregrine stops the conversation, reminding them not to speak of future events. Everyone resumes eating, except Claire, until Jake encourages her. She then smiles and uses the hidden mouth on the back of her neck to eat. After an unkind comment from Enoch, Emma leaves the table. Miss Peregrine soon receives a phone call from a younger Abe. Later in the living room, Horace's dreams are projected onto a screen. While they appear random, they also offer glimpses of what might happen. One shows a woman being taken away by dangerous people, another shows Jake and Emma sharing a kiss. Miss Peregrine quickly shuts off the projection. Everyone leaves the house to prepare for the daily loop reset. They are stuck on September 3rd, 1943, during an ongoing war. Just before a bomb is set to land on the house, they put on masks and look up at the planes. Right before impact, Miss Peregrine turns the clock back 24 hours. They must stay inside the loop. If they leave it, time would catch up with them and they would no longer survive. Emma brings Jake back to the cave where she shows him a phone. They take a picture together. Suddenly, a bird flies into the cave and crashes into the wall. Emma carries it back home to care for it. Jake returns to the present and finds his father looking for him. A farmer tells them about some sheep that have died under strange circumstances. Back at the house, Jake finds a letter that Abe wrote to Miss Peregrine. It warns her about someone named Mr. Barron and urges her to warn Miss Avocet, another headmistress, to create a new loop right away. Jake and his dad go to the beach and meet an ornithologist studying rare birds. This bores his dad, who decides to head back to the room, giving Jake a chance to sneak away. Miss Peregrine tends to the bird, which is actually Miss Avocet, the same woman from Horace's dream. Like Miss Peregrine, she has the ability to turn into a bird. Jake asks her about Baron, but she avoids answering. Later, Enoch and Olive take Jake to see Victor, Bronwyn's brother, who was taken by the same creature that hurt Abe. His eyes were missing. Enoch briefly reanimates Victor like a puppet to scare Jake. Terrified, Jake runs downstairs and sees the other kids getting ready for their walk. Miss Peregrine also visits Victor's room and embraces him gently, even though he cannot respond. Emma takes Jake to a secret place, a sunken ship underwater. Jake worries Emma might not make it back, but she creates an air bubble so he can breathe and removes all the water from the ship. She shows him a box Abe gave her, filled with photos of people from the past, including Mr. Barron, whom Jake recognizes from near Abe's home. Emma explains that Barron is the leader of a dangerous group. He targets loops and wants to take lives to extend his own. She also reveals that Jake is not ordinary. He belongs with the Peculiars. Jake doesn't believe her, but to prove it, Emma takes him to see Miss Peregrine as she prepares to face a creature. She stands near a chalk outline when a tall, eyeless figure appears. Only Jake can see it. Miss Peregrine fires an arrow, hitting it precisely. Emma realizes Jake's special ability is that he can see these invisible beings. Emma brings a book to Miss Peregrine that describes the monsters. She explains that Baron and his followers, once peculiar, tried an experiment that went wrong. It turned them into creatures called Hollow Ones. To regain a human form, they must consume the eyes of other peculiars. Jake realizes that this is what happened to Abe. Miss Avocet finally wakes and is afraid that Baron is coming. Miss Peregrine decides they must leave and find a new home in another loop. Emma and Jake argue. He wants to stay, while she wants him to come. He returns to the present and sees Frank worried. A local named Augie has been found lifeless with his eyes missing. Jake knows he must warn the others. Jake's father tries to stop him, concerned about the risks. But Jake enters the cave, where the ornithologist follows. He reveals himself as Dr. Golan before transforming into Baron. He admits he was at Abe's house the day everything changed and forces Jake to lead him to Miss Peregrine's home. Miss Peregrine opens the door, concerned, and Baron enters, demanding the children gather. But they only obey Miss Peregrine, who tells them to stay back. Knowing Jake is the only one who can see Baron's companion, Miss Peregrine makes a bold choice. She offers herself in exchange for the children's safety. Before she leaves, she asks Jake to promise he'll do everything he can to protect them if things go wrong. She agrees to the plan and transforms into a bird so the Baron can capture her. Jake and Miss Avocet lead the group, helping to keep the children hidden in the darkness. Just as danger approaches, Jake answers the phone and hears the voice of a young Abe from 1943. Though Abe doesn't know Jake yet, Jake uses the moment to express his feelings and say he wishes he had been a better grandson. While Miss Avocet guides the children, one of the creatures grabs her through the wall. The children panic, and Jake leads them to safety, picking up Miss Peregrine's crossbow to defend them. One of the creatures attacks Enoch, who tries to protect himself. Jake struggles to aim, and the monster hurls Enoch against the walls with its long limbs. The children retreat to the attic. Jake finally hits the creature just before it harms Enoch. Though injured, the creature keeps coming and breaks down the door. They attempt to escape through a window, and Fiona manipulates a tree to give them shelter. While they climb to safety, the creature enters the attic. The children make it to the tree just in time. A plane drops a bomb on the house, destroying the creature. The loop closes for good, and they can no longer return to their former home. Unsure of their next move, they head to the beach and decide to leave the island. Together, they raise Emma's sunken ship to reach Blackpool, where another time loop exists. Their combined effort pays off, and they get ready to sail. Emma explains that the new loop, created in January 2016, could offer a chance to prevent Abe's fate if they can stop the Baron there. They share the plan with the others and emphasize that time is running out. Upon reaching Blackpool Pier, they pass through a haunted house where the Baron and his team plan to conduct an experiment involving Miss Peregrine and others. Jake and Emma head into Blackpool Tower and try to draw the creatures out. Emma removes her metal shoes to attract the Baron and tells him they defeated the creature at their former home. Their plan works, and the creatures follow them to the pier. Spectators watch as Emma floats into the air, but she gets caught in wires just as a train approaches. Jake pulls her to safety, and one of the creatures is struck by the train. At the pier, the peculiar children begin to fight back. They throw snow and cotton candy to reveal the creatures in the light. Enoch brings two skeletons from the haunted house to life, and they attack the creatures in view of shocked bystanders. Bronwyn rips a horse off a carousel and uses it to knock one of the creatures into the water. As panic spreads, everyone rushes toward the tower, hoping to rescue Miss Peregrine. The other children confront the Baron and his allies. Emma sends a strong gust of wind at him, while Hugh releases bees to distract the others. One creature throws blades, and Enoch counters, but is stopped. Olive tries to set the Baron on fire, but he overpowers her. After Jake misses a shot, Bronwyn throws a chair to distract the Baron, allowing Jake to grab the crossbow. Horace attempts to blind the Baron with light, but fails. Another creature tries to freeze and drown Bronwyn, but Fiona throws seeds that quickly grow and trap it. Emma slows the Baron again with a strong gust. Olive tries to help Bronwyn, but another creature begins to freeze her. Enoch revives a toy elephant that crushes the attacker. The last creature goes after the younger children, but turns to stone when the twins remove their masks. Olive appears frozen solid, but Enoch stays by her side until she revives. Exhausted, Emma can no longer hold the wind. Jake frees the trapped allies, which enrages the Baron. Birds fly away to form new loops. When Emma and Enoch see Jake, the Baron impersonates him to trick them. Jake and the imposter argue, each trying to prove their identity. A creature sneaks up, and Jake recognizes it first, confirming he is the real one. The creature attacks the Baron, thinking he's Jake, and targets his eyes. At that moment, they take it down with a shot from the crossbow. The children board the ship to remain inside the loop. Jake stays behind, knowing he may never see them again. One by one, they say goodbye. Emma hugs him, reassuring him they'll be safe now. Time moves forward on the pier as the loops close. Back in Florida, Jake visits his grandfather's home and finds him alive. He shares everything that happened, and his grandfather gives him a birthday gift, a book filled with money for travel. He encourages Jake to find the others, saying that's where he truly belongs. Jake rushes to the pier and catches up with Emma. He explains that he traveled through different loops across cities and years to find her. She's moved and kisses him. He joins the group once again. Just then, Miss Peregrine flies overhead, having found the children at last. She heads for the ship to reunite with them.